Hello everyone, Tactical here and welcome back to another Total Warhammer ranked multiplayer battle where we are using the Greenskins to challenge the Chaos Dwarfs in their artillery game. Yes, we are using our very own artillery here, the rather rudimentary Doom Diver catapult of the Greenskins. Basically, goblins strapped onto wings and then strapped onto a massive slingshot, dunk them into enemy formations, and hopefully these suicide divers would do some good damage to their opponents. These guys do track their targets, so with the recent homing update, I expect them to hit with more accuracy. Basically using them as precision artillery to counter-snipe the Chaos Dwarf firepower. Anyways, for the rest of the army here, we're going for a front line of goblins led by, well, Grom the Paunch, the biggest, baddest goblin with regeneration and a bunch of pretty nice, useful buffs and abilities. For the spell support, we have the Giant River Troll Hag coming in with Spirit Leech and Fate of Buna. As for the rest of the army here, we have a ton of mobility, very typical of Greenskins, going for a bunch of light cavalry, more gross Mangy Marauders, and Death Creepers, two very signature skirmish cavalry of the Greenskins, and then 4 Forest Goblin Spider Riders in total. No more mobility, but we invested the rest of the funds into a more elite infantry formation. Orc Biggins flanking the Crimson Killers. Armor piercing, anti-infantry, and also splash damage. On the other side there, we have the Chaos Dwarfs attempting to box against the Greenskins, going for a magma cannon as the center artillery piece, probably not expecting an artillery duel. So very good against enemy infantry formations, but against enemy artillery, this might struggle. Now the infantry department is quite elite for the Chaos Dwarfs. A bunch of Chaos Dwarf warriors on the flanks, and then we have some Infernal Gods with Fire Glaives backing them up. In the center, the Granite Gods will be holding the line, not only with their armor and elite melee defense, but also using their blunderbusses suppression, and more importantly, the knockback to interrupt their opponent's charges, gunning them down before they can even get into melee range. Further back, there are more infantry in the form of Chaos Dwarf warriors, one of them with great weapons, and the Infernal Iron Swan will be guarding the rear of the formation. In the forest, there are 2 Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders with spears, ready to counteract enemy mobility with their own speed. Leading the army, Zatan the Black, supported by a single Demon Smith Sorcerer with Reforge for healing the Magma Cannon and Final Transmutation to drain away enemies' health. That's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started. Right as the battle begins, my goblins are deployed quite far ahead, trying to screen away any possible infantry, as the Doom Diver catapults will be protected by the screening, but this does put the goblins in the range of the Magma Cannon receiving the first volley, drawing first blood. Of course, this is what the goblins does best, well, dying, so that the rest of the army, including the Doom Diver catapults, can move into position and counteract enemy threats. The Death Creepers and Mangy Marauders are moving up as well, not noticing any of these hidden Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders in the forest. They are trying to get in range and start shooting at the Chaos Dwarf formations. However, without any support, they are not going to succeed, as the Magma Cannon has turned its attention against them. One direct hit from the Magma Cannon is enough to take out a huge chunk of HP from the Mangy Marauders as well as a dozen of models. The burnt effect further damages their leadership, and with the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders bounding out of the forest, these skirmishing cavalry will be quickly pushed back. Now, my characters are moving up, and the Doom Diver catapults are indeed in range, counter-firing at the Magma Cannon. A single volley is enough to take away a quarter of the health on these Magma Cannon, and you can see that down to half health, the Magma Cannon is not going to hold on for too long. Leadership quickly dipping. However, I did make a mistake here. The Giant River Troll Hag is pushing a little too close to the enemy formation. The Fire Glaives are seizing this chance, unleashing a deadly volley of bullets against my caster, taking a huge chunk of health away. Good news is that at least the Magma Cannon has been routed, a Reforge ability trying to keep its hit points high, but the Magma Cannon is getting continuously pounded by the Doom Diver catapults. I also got my River Troll Hag routed, but thankfully she does have a bit of regeneration and she'll be able to come back after she recovers some HP. Grom the Punch is now being shot by the Fire Glaives, but thankfully he also has regeneration, so he can recover from the incoming damage. Noticing the Doom Diver catapults nuking the Magma Cannon, the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders are going on a suicidal charge, desperately trying to shut down my Doom Diver catapults, but I did have a lot of Forest Goblin Spider Riders in reserve, pushing back the Chaos Dwarf mobility while my Doom Diver catapults are pretty much secured against enemy threats, now able to switch targets against enemy infantry, this time the Infernal Gods with fire glaives. They are indeed quite expensive and the armor piercing can do some nice damage against them, but unfortunately for me, the Doom Diver catapults are not exactly the greatest anti-infantry tool. Their ammo is just goblins with glider wings slapped onto them, so there is no explosions, no shrapnel. Goblins and their gory explosion on impact doesn't do that much splash damage, so the fire glaives are not taking as much damage as when they're being fired at by other artillery. At this point, the magma cannon has recovered some HP and has regrouped, but before its counterfire can do much damage, another quarter of its HP is taken out by a single Doom Diver catapult. So the magma cannon has been pushed off as my opponent desperately try to push with the infantry, trying to rush my formation. I'll be stopping them with a bit of goblin charging. They won't do much of course, but they'll at least slow down enemy advance. Another volley from the Doom Diver catapult and the magma cannon is completely gone. But here comes the elite infantry and a wall of metal and shield will be pushing back my goblins, especially from the Infernal Iron Sworn, blasting my goblins, but I do think that it did a little bit more friendly fire than actual damage to my army, because a lot of these poor Granite Guard are absolutely getting smacked by their own explosives. A bit of a Fate of Buna weakening the Infernal Iron Sworn, bypassing all the armor melee defense, directly weakening the entire unit. But my opponent counteracted with a very juicy Final Transmutation upgraded version, hitting 2 Spider Riders, a Goblin, 2 Goblin units actually, and both of my characters, and getting quite some juicy damage value, 1000 gold worth of damage value already. But thankfully for me, unlike the more meta Greenskin characters like Wurzeg and Nazeg, these 2 characters do have regeneration to counteract any direct damage, so they will be less susceptible to this kind of spells. Now my infantry is trying to push, but the Crimson Killers is in a rather sticky scenario. They are already suppressed by the Granite Guard and getting slowed, and on top of that, they are getting knocked over every 2 steps by the severe knockback from the blunderbusses. Down to 20 speed and constantly falling over, they are getting torn apart by the blunderbusses. Almost half of their health is gone before they can even engage in melee. Luckily for me, Grom the Punch is here for the rescue, charging itself into the Granite Guard, disrupting their firing animation. Finally, the Crimson Killers are able to get into melee combat, although they're down to half health. But with their anti-infantry bonus, their splash attacks, and their aggressive melee stats, they should be able to cleave through enemy formations without any issues. You can see that the Granite Guard and the Chaos Dwarf infantry with great weapons are all taking insane damage, especially with the damage spike from a massive Wa. Now I did make another mistake. With my aggressive push of infantry, they are actually out of position, unable to protect the Doom Diver catapults. Now the Chaos Dwarf warriors are beelining for my last Doom Diver catapults, who will soon be shut down as well. But before then, they will still be firing their final volleys into some Chaos Dwarf infantry. These are the Fire Glaives Infernal Gods, trying to expand as much of their ammo and gain as much value as possible. There's one last Fire Glaive standing. They're switching targets at the routed Giant River Troll Hag. And with their firepower, should be able to finish off the Giant River Troll Hag as they are firing in guard mode, but I still have quite a bit of mobility on my side. The Mogros, Mangy Marauders, and Death Creepers are firing, chipping away the health of these Chaos Dwarf warriors and the Fire Glaives, and with the tattered Forest Goblin Spider Riders, any routed Chaos Dwarf units will be ran down. And then, of course, the goblins are still fighting, providing quite a bit of chaff support, while the Orc Biggins somehow trading toe-to-toe against the Infernal Iron Sworn and Chaos Dwarf warriors. Especially over here, 1 unit versus 2 Chaos Dwarf warriors. They don't have the greatest armor piercing, but with 42 weapon strength, 27 charge bonus, and 38 melee attack, they can actually do some pretty decent damage. On top of that, I'm sending the Death Creepers over to provide some missile support and rear charges. Hopefully this extra support will be able to tip the scale and help the Biggins win out against the 2 Chaos Dwarf warriors. Anyways, back into this main blob engagement, Infernal Ironsworn are fighting head-to-head against Goblins and Crimson Killers. Crimson Killers just enjoying this carnage and slaughter, doing some very solid damage over time. Almost 1000 gold worth of damage value, and they are still holding strong with a quarter of HP left. Forest Goblin Spider Riders mostly just running around hunting down routed units, including the one on the far side there, finishing off the last of the Fire Glaives. There are some tattered Great Weapon Chaos Dwarf Warriors returning, but with a charge from both of these Forest Goblin Spider Riders and especially another war boosting their melee stats, the Great Weapon Dwarf Warriors, Chaos Dwarf Warriors will be quickly eliminated. Now with all the missile troops and the regular Chaos Dwarf Warriors gone, the Crimson Killers are just fighting the Infernal Iron Swan and Zatan the Black, cleaving a bloody path through their enemies. On the far side there, Morgro's Magic Marauders routed off the final Infernal Guards with Fire Glaives, while at the back here, I'm doing some cheeky cycle charging with the Death Creepers and some tattered regrouping Forest Goblin Spider Riders, using that Hammer and Anvil impact damage to eliminate two pretty solid Chaos Dwarf Infantry. This cuts off the last remaining Chaos Dwarf Infantry reinforcement available to the main blob. But the Chaos Dwarfs are not letting go just yet, still having magic to carry their game. Another final transmutation on the vicinity here, trying to hit both the Crimson Killers, the Goblins, and also Grom the Punch, but I have moved Grom the Punch out of the way, so it is just the Crimson Killers falling victim to the spell. At the same time, Morgro's Magic Marauders will be utilizing its armor-piercing missiles on these Infernal Iron Sworn, especially now that the Infernal Iron Sworn are turning their backs against the Skirmishing Cavalry as they're too busy fighting the Orc Biggins. They'll be receiving even more damage as their shields are no longer blocking incoming arrows. On top of that, the Orc Biggins are boosted by the Great Unizir. That extra melee attack is actually helping them winning against the Infernal Iron Swan, with the Goblins flanking the Chaos Dwarfs. With the Iron Swans faltering, the characters are alone, surrounded by the Green Tide. I'll be doing a bit of cycle charging with Grom the Punch at this point. He didn't really do that much here. Basically just absorbing damage with his regeneration, but that is fine. That's all I want him to do, as the Crimson Killers and Doom Diver Catapults carried the game. GG to my opponent there. My game was basically carried by the Doom Diver Catapults, their precision fire sniping out that magma cannon and then crushing some of those Fire Glaives Infernal Gods. And of course, don't forget about the Crimson Killers, cleaving their way through a host of Chaos Dwarf Infantry, earning back their valor despite they're down to half health before even entering melee combat, cutting down Zatan the Black and a ton of the Infernal Iron Swans. For the characters, they didn't really do that much damage, mostly just using that regeneration to counteract enemies' final transmutation. Unfortunately, the Giant River Troll hack died, but Grom the Punch held, and that was just enough for me to crush my opponent in terms of balance of power. For the rest of the army, the Orc Biggins fought quite competently even against the armored Chaos Dwarf Warriors, while the light cavalry didn't do that much damage other than chasing off routed, scattered Chaos Dwarf infantry, and the goblins, well, they're just goblins, so not much to say about them. Actually, this one earned back quite a bit of value surrounding and beating down the Demon Smith. As for the Chaos Dwarfs, the magma cannon got sniped out by the precision fire from the Doom Diver Catapults, while the Fire Glaives got quite a bit of value shooting at my characters, but still, being hunted down by the Goblins and a combination of Doom Diver Catapults, they were not able to carry the game. While the Granite Guard, they attempted to shoot down my Crimson Killers, but Grom the Punch was there to save the day, disrupting their shooting, and then the Crimson Killers made short work of them. For the rest of the Chaos Dwarf army, Zatan the Black did very minor damage. The Infernal Iron Swan didn't quite hold their ground. While their melee defense stats would hold against regular Black Orcs, against the Crimson Killers, who are a specialized infantry killer, they are just not quite enough to hold their ground, especially when hit by a Fate of Buna. And then the Demon Smith Sorcerer of Metal, some very, very juicy final transmutation. If I didn't bring characters with regeneration, I would have lost the game with those deadly spells. As for the melee infantry here, not a lot of damage value other than maybe these two Chaos Dwarf Warriors. Got some pretty good trade, cutting down the Doom Diver Catapults, I assume, but overall, just not able to do too much work, as my Crimson Killers and Orc Biggins was able to trade decently into them. That's about it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed the action, especially the Doom Diver Catapults. If you want to see more Total Warhammer multiplayer action, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.